Today's headline is Columbus the Knight. This article was delivered at Huron, South Dakota on October 12, 1915, at the banquet given by the Knights of Columbus in observance of Discovery Day. It says, the first great and commanding personage that looms up before the American boy and girl when they're introduced to the study of United States history is Christopher Columbus. Great characters in the history of the world are of vastly different orders and types. Caesars and Napoleons there have been, heroes in the field of military affairs, Gladstones, Bismarcks, and Lincolns, who had devoted great genius and ability to matters of state. Other men, who in all ages and climes have led in the onward march of religion, education, and civilization. Still other men there have been, who were forerunners, the pioneers of the Christianity and civilization which was to be carried into the unexplored and unknown parts of the world. Columbus occupies the most prominent place in this last class of historical figures. The knightly qualities which stand out so boldly in the life of our patron are surely of the highest order. In the past, the term knight has carried with it many different meanings. Probably the first mental image we receive on hearing the word is that of the plumed knight, powerful and erect in physical stature, clad in his coat of armor, bearing a great sword or battle axe, mounted on a fiery steed. We may picture him roaming through the lonely and trackless forest in quest of worldly adventure. He may be on some worthy errand, which if successfully executed will bring to him worldly honors and the plaudits of his people. He may be seeking out a foe in worldly fashion to secure the hand of his lady or a pot of gold. But there have been other orders of knighthood whose ideals reach far beyond anything conceived of by the type just referred to. I pass them by, however, except the one type which is exemplified in the life of the discoverer of America. Christopher Columbus was born in Genoa, Italy, of poor and obscure parents. He received but a meager secondary education, becoming much interested in geography and map drawing. He was early impressed with the necessity of a new and shorter route from his native city of Genoa to the East Indies. Hearing of the attempts of the Portuguese to set a new route to the east, at the age of 35, he went to Lisbon where one of his brothers lived. It was here that he launched the one and great supreme effort of his life, and never ceased until he had won the goal. Spurned from the throne of Portugal, Columbus took his son by the hand and turned towards Spain, in the hope of there receiving the necessary aid in carrying out his project. Although poor, Columbus was a man of commanding figure, always had the air of a gentleman, and was courteous and pleasing in manner. In Spain, he was forced to follow the camp of the king and queen from one part of their kingdom to another, and at last he was given a hearing. He was scoffed at and ridiculed in the streets, as well as in the royal court. But constancy and devotion to his purpose finally won for him the necessary support. Equipped with 3 little boats, manned by crews of irresponsible and treacherous men, he left the shores of Spain and boldly turned the prows of his vessels westward into the vast unknown. After weeks of sailing, his men became fearful and discouraged. They threatened to throw him overboard, but no, he would sail on. Night after night, alone on the deck of his vessel, he watched and prayed, anxious for the object of his voyage to appear. He never wavered. His courage and patience were ever with him, for he possessed the virtues of faith and hope. He did discover not a new route in an old world, but a new world. On his return to Spain, he was tendered the congratulations of Europe, and Spain bestowed upon him her highest honors. When he knelt to kiss the royal hand, he was bid to rise and sit an equal in their presence. But worldly honors are of short duration and always very uncertain. In the final analysis of his work, men of intrigue realized that he had failed to bring back shiploads of gold and other riches. Falsely accused, he was returned from one of his last voyages a prisoner, disgraced and in chains. For his great work, he was allowed to die in poverty of a broken heart. So little was his work appreciated that the city annals made no mention of his death. The life of Columbus was well illustrated in the great voyages of discovery that he made. Beautiful days of sunshine floating on the peaceful bosom of the ocean. Days when his ships passed into the belt of storms, when black clouds and the horrors of an angry sea rendered his very being unsafe and insecure. Days when he knew not what fate would prove to be. Life's last scene is a struggle in the storm. The breakers are ahead, and whether sailing in fair weather or foul, the frail bark will certainly be dashed to pieces against them. It was his abiding faith in the great master that gave him strength to meet in a manly way that great and stern crisis, only to pass beyond into other seas of eternal peace and sunshine. He endured at all times with patience and fortitude the calumnies and persecutions heaped upon him by his fellow men. Then the greatest of all virtues, which is charity, coupled with those of faith and hope, marks strongly the character of Columbus. Now he belongs to the ages. As the fruits of his indomitable courage and ambition, and the virtues which he possessed in his great nature, we have a mighty Western world, teeming with millions of liberty-enjoying people who occupy a high place in the forefront of modern civilization. And history has accorded to the discoverer of that great Western world a place that will endure under the close of the annals of men. Monuments, tributes of a worldly nature, are swept away in a little while by the ravages of time. It's only the monuments erected in the minds and hearts of men that will endure and pass down to each succeeding generation. In the ideal of knighthood, it is the sacrifice, the danger, and the hardships for which the hero must breast his way that give to it its luster of nobility and greatness. It took courage and great personal sacrifice in Columbus to brook the established knowledge of the times. He sacrificed his own personal comfort and welfare to accomplish a great work which was to be of inestimable value and importance to mankind. Not alone was he desirous of securing for his people commercial and otherworldly advantages, but his sympathies reached out to the ignorant heathen of foreign lands. He longed to see them securing the blessings of Christianity and civilization. In station and the attendant circumstances surrounding his work, Columbus certainly did not resemble the armored knight of old. He did not gain his title to knighthood shielded in a great coat of armor and wielding a terrible sword. He did not go forth to battle amid the applause and best wishes of numerous admirers. Columbus approached his great task in poverty, clad in worn and tattered apparel, his long white hair streaming over his shoulders, begging at a door by the wayside for bread and water for his boy. He faced derision, scorn, and the opposition of the learning of the age. He faced the perils of the deep, when men to sail his ships that could not be trusted in a law-abiding land. He accomplished his great and noble work, and must be given rank as a knight of the highest order. Christopher Columbus possessed another knightly quality that brings to a man his enemies as well as his friends. It is a quality that inevitably excites the jealousies and the opposition of certain kinds of people. That quality to which I refer is initiative. Columbus had the courage to publicly advocate the theory that the earth was round. Some other men in that day also entertained that theory, but all they did was just to entertain it. Those who would be knights today must possess and make constant use of initiative. We no longer need the armored knight of old, but we do need knights who possess the qualities to which I have referred in the person of Columbus. No man can remain a good man and lie supinely on his back. In the matter of morals and religion, there is no such thing as standing still. Man must either go up or down. If he wills to go up, he is ever called upon to assert himself. If he remains silent or passive, he is drifting downward, whether he wills to do so or not. It matters not whether he be counted one of the lowly or a man of position and influence. He is called upon very frequently to present the mailed fist of righteousness to daily opposition. It's the old battle of good versus evil. There's only one effective way in which to wage such a struggle, and that is the positive and open one. The enemies of Columbus won a worldly and shallow victory over him when they stripped him of his honors and his position. But succeeding generations, far removed from the scenes of local prejudice and strife, have universally accorded to him an exalted position in the memory of man that is occupied by the very few, and by none that will prove more lasting. It is very natural, and indeed becoming, that on this memorable date, our order, the Knights of Columbus, should take an active part in the commemoration of that great event, the discovery of America by the poor sailor, Christopher Columbus. He is the patron of our order. He gave the very best of knightly qualities for the benefit of mankind. His great effort, which after 18 years of patient toil and endurance was crowned with one of the greatest successes in all of history, emanated from lofty ideals and a firm faith that constancy to purpose and a clean effort in the open will always receive its reward. Faith, hope, charity, and brotherly love are not alone the foundation stones of any particular order or band of men, but they are the virtues which must bind all men of all creeds and in all climes into one grand order, where each individual will respect, understand, and sympathize with his fellows about him. Life in the physical is a struggle for existence, and evolutionists tell us rightly that it is a matter of the survival of the fittest. Life in the moral and religious sphere is also a struggle for better things in the hereafter. The physical side of life is the unimportant one after all. The moral and religious side is the one of eternal concern. In the fight men wage on earth, that they may win victory over death, it indeed seems foolish and useless for them to antagonize one another. When the nation is divided against itself, it becomes an easy prey to foreign foes. United we stand, divided we fall. This axiomatic truth applies with the greatest force to man's moral and religious well-being. Man has enough to do to fight to the bitter end the wiles and lures of his satanic majesty without his house in the fighting being divided against itself. In the world of Christendom, all men who are earnest and sincere in this business, which concerns so much our immortal souls, are intent only in assisting others if they can do so. Never are they busied about those things which will have a contrary effect. The world always has and ever will give some evidences of most violent prejudice. The pages of history are filled with accounts of persecutions based on numerous fictitious grounds. Creeds of all kinds have bled from the cruel hand of prejudice and its oppression. But man has been emancipating himself from servitude to his prejudice, and the greatest monument of the 20th century to this onward movement of toleration and freedom is our own American Republic. With the great powers of the old world engulfed in the most gigantic death-dealing struggle in all history, humanity is appealing with a firm hope to America, the one great nation of the earth, where peace reigns supreme. A land where every man is his own master, has a voice in his own government, and may worship his God as his conscience dictates. One of the fundamental obligations of the Knights of Columbus is patriotic and constant devotion to civil duty. No man can enter our order who is unwilling to assume this obligation. I know I speak the truth when I state that in our country's need, she will have at her immediate disposal 300,000 patriotic knights, ready at all times to do their duty in the light of American ideals. In the time of peace and plenty, they are laboring alongside their fellow Americans, contributing to the betterment and development of the Republic, according to the measure of their talents. The spirit of our order is that of cooperation with all men of goodwill. Men have ever banded themselves together for social, commercial, religious, and other purposes, with the idea that through their organizations, they may bring about a better understanding and more effective cooperation with the world outside. By their fruits ye shall know them. The fruits of its work will show forth, and are the things of interest and consequence to those who come within range of the activity of the organization. Respect for authority and submission to discipline are commanded in the principles upon which our order rests. Compliance with these tenets results in the love of God, country, and home. Only the men who will learn the disciplines of life and obey its mandates will ever accomplish a great work. And that work will be a great one, measured not in worldly gain, but in the measure of good which radiates from within the man outward during the span of his lifetime. The laws of nature are immutable, and if disobeyed, the culprit will pay the full measure for each offense. True it is that childhood is the time of play, but it is the time of development, the acquirement of habits that will influence the behavior of the child during all its life. How many young persons whose lives have been wrecked in the springtime could have avoided the terrible disaster if only the strict discipline of human existence could have been impressed upon them and illuminated the pitfalls into which they had plunged? As uncompromising as the laws that govern human life may seem, all is not burden. While youth is to be impressed with the stern reality of things as they are, it should be given also an understanding of the reward which manly effort will ever merit and receive. If we meet the sunshine with a smiling countenance, it will cast from us a mountain of obstacles and give to us renewed strength and vigor. If we are dazed by the darkness ahead, we may never behold the light in the distance. The patron of our order had his being saturated with the virtue of hope. He hoped and continued to hope, for at the best years of his life, combated obstacles seemingly too great to be overcome. And then in the autumn of his career, that hope was more than realized. One great hindrance to a constant indulgence in hope is the fact that human nature is given to troubles not its own. Too great an amount of precious energy and lifeblood is spent in fretting about the trivial affairs of life. Christ, in his reproof of Martha, said, "Mary has chosen the better part." Brotherly love is a virtue essential to human peace and happiness. No man can hope to see the influence of his activities yield that which is good, save for the agency of his love for his fellow men. Hatred is one of the tried and true weapons which the devil has ever used in his campaigns on earth for victims. The Son of God, in his sojourn on earth, gave to man his greatest example of true love. Even within the memory of living men was reiterated those words of kindness and generosity, with malice towards none, with charity for all. Such a spirit gives evidence of a truly great soul. Even boys and girls understand and appreciate it. Some while ago, in the course of my experience in schoolwork, a boy in a lower grade wrote a simple paragraph during an examination on the subject, "My favorite picture." It read as follows: "My favorite picture is that of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It shows right in his face all the kindness a human being may possess. It shows his love for others aside from himself. That is the kind of a man that should have his picture painted." The idea contained in that crude assemblage of words is indeed noteworthy. Yes, that is the man that will have his picture painted, not alone on a piece of canvas, but in the hearts of other men. I remember another instance of appreciation and understanding of kindness in children. A little girl of the community had died, and on the following day, while the body was lying in state, there was a faint rap at the door. It was Punk, a little urchin of the street. He was admitted, gazed first at the remains of the little girl, then observed the flowers and the burning candles. He asked what it all meant, and why the little girl was lying there. As he was leaving, he stopped to explain. He said, "I wanted to see her because she was always kind to me. She always spoke to me on the street. She was kind to me and always had nice things to say to me." But brotherly love, to be a virtue, must include not only our friends and those who agree with us in our beliefs, opinions, and doctrines, but also those who are outside the pale of our caste. He who chooses by reason of his prejudices those on whom he will bestow his assistance and support is but a hypocrite, and his conduct is but a mockery of the goodness which he outwardly professes. Liberty was the great controlling ideal upon which the American Republic was built. That liberty anticipated not only the right of the individual to participate in the conduct and control of a government instituted for the people and by the people, but the enjoyment by all its citizens of the respect, goodwill, and democratic support of one another, regardless of creeds or private opinion. Liberty, on the other hand, is in no sense synonymous with license. Freedom of speech and freedom of the press is guaranteed to the American citizen, but that freedom does not give to any man or class of men the right or privilege to slander or libel other men simply because they adhere to a creed or organization that is not in accord with their own private notions. The spirit of justice and untainted liberty has ever been so strong in this country that the great leaders of the Republic in all generations have risen in their might to strike down unfounded prejudice and discrimination against one citizen or class of citizens by another. To thine own self be true, and 'twill fall as the night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. This is a firm requisite of that high conception of knighthood which is fostered by our order. It is the burning desire and the great purpose of the Knights of Columbus, as is true of all men who are earnest and sincere in the living, to promote goodwill everywhere and among all people, by the fruits of its organization work to make of its members the highest type of American citizens, by its labor to bring all men to a true understanding of its worthy ideals and the loyalty and sincerity of its teachings, to set the example of constant love and devotion to God, to country, and to thy neighbor as thyself. This story comes from the great state of South Dakota, being reported in the Daily Huronite of October 23rd, 1915. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.